Hi, my name's Lytle and I want to tell you a story. What the heck are cryptocurrencies? If you're like me, you've tried to answer that question by watching YouTube videos with voiceovers that sound like this, and they use buzzwords like blockchain and encryption. Those videos give great technical detail, but I think they're hard to understand because they skip over the backstory. Because to understand how cryptocurrencies work, we need to understand a fundamental thing about money. It's made up. Thousands of years ago, when we still used the bartering system, it was really difficult to get something you needed from someone else who needed something else from someone. Even that sentence attempting to explain it was confusing, so we decided to create standard mediums of exchange that people could use to buy and sell goods. These currencies made transactions faster and more reliable. The only thing they needed to work was a sense of trust that everyone will treat these objects as if they are valuable, and no one will cheat the system. But inevitably, people did. So these businesses called banks, sometimes sponsored by the government, started providing people with economic security. Rather than trusting everyone to follow the rules, you trusted this institution to enforce them and protect you. This system is called a centralized currency, where the power of economic regulation is left to one central agency. But they're businesses, and like all businesses, they screw up. And when that happens, it's bad news for everyone, but we forgive them because our financial system is reliant on this group of smart people using complicated math to keep us safe. After the 2007 housing crisis, though, some computer scientists felt they could use their favorite tool to make those smart people obsolete. They wanted to distribute the economic control and use computers to create a public, open-source, decentralized currency. A currency built on societal trust and computer bits. A Bitcoin. This is the foundational idea behind cryptocurrencies. Rather than relying on a government or central authority for financial protection, the people using the currency regulate their own system. Now, I can guess what you're thinking. Isn't that the problem we were solving by making central authorities? Without someone enforcing the rules, people cheat the system. Well, yes, but now...
we have technology!
So, cryptocurrencies use a network of computers and clever cryptography to track and verify transactions. And they do it all on what's called a public ledger. This is just a list of every transaction that has ever been made using the currency. It's what keeps track of how much money everyone has and where that money is going. And it's publicly available so anyone can help keep it up to date. All of these volunteers get notified when new transactions are made, and they write them all down. Then, after a sizable block of transactions has been made, they compare lists. They look for inconsistencies or to see if anyone is doing anything shady. Usually though, they just have transactions in a different order because people around the world receive the transaction notifications at different times. So all of the volunteers have to decide whose block to add to the chain before the transactions can be verified and executed. To do this, and I'm not kidding, they actually just race to do a really hard math problem, and whoever does it first gets to add their block to the chain. This is where the term blockchain comes from. The public ledger is just a chain of blocks of transactions. And as a tip for their hard work, the volunteer whose block is added gets a small amount of the currency. This process is known as mining, and these volunteers are known as miners. They make money by doing the hard work to keep the system decentralized. Now, if I want to start using a cryptocurrency, I have to have what's called a wallet. This wallet has an address, similar to a routing number, and it also has a unique lock and key combo. The lock is kept private and only I can use it, but the key is actually publicly available to anyone on the internet. This might seem like the dumbest idea ever, but the lock isn't for my wallet, it's for all of my transactions. See, if I want to send money to my mom, I write a check with my wallet address, her wallet address, and the amount I want to send. Then, I lock it with my private lock and send it to the miners so they can add it to the ledger. Since only I have access to my private lock, and it can only be opened with my public key, to verify that this transaction came from me, all the system has to do is unlock the check with my public key. This system prevents anyone from adding a transaction to the public ledger saying something like, "Drew decided to give me all of his money today." And by using these two policies, the public ledger and encrypted transactions, cryptocurrencies are completely decentralized from any central authority. The only thing maintaining them is a belief from the people that all of the time and energy is worth it. So, why do they believe it's worth it? Well, ask the people of Venezuela. They are currently experiencing severe economic disparity because their government, who they trusted to protect them, overinflated their currency. The bolivar is currently valued at 50,000 to $1, and exchanges, controlled by the government, are sometimes unavailable to the people, causing them to illegally exchange their money on the black market at a rate of 240,000 bolivar to $1. They are starving and fighting for survival because of a break in trust. And many Venezuelans are actually using cryptocurrencies as a safe haven from the mistakes, corruption, and failure of their centrally controlled currency. They see cryptocurrencies as a way to take control back from the government and provide themselves with protection against corruption. And although I'm not a cryptocurrency advocate, I can understand that sentiment. I can see why that fear would drive people to a decentralized currency outside of government control. A system that puts their protection in their own hands, regardless of its flaws and risks. And understanding that can help us understand the current Second Amendment debate in America. For me personally, it's really hard to see why anyone would feel the need to own a gun like this. That's because generally, I feel safe with the protection I have been provided by the government. But some advocates of the Second Amendment do not trust the government's ability to protect them. They feel a need to protect themselves and their families from those that would do them harm. And to some, that list could include the government. If corruption or oppression begins to plague them, they want the ability to bring the power back to the people. Just like the advocates of cryptocurrencies, regardless of the flaws, risks, or tragedies this system incurs, they believe it's worth it to have power rest outside of central control. And although I don't agree, I can understand. Because let's be real, this is America. We were built on trust issues. And I think it's great we're starting to discuss them, but while we do, it's important to remember that we all want the same thing: safety. The hard part is finding a system that makes us all feel safe and that we can all trust. Thanks for watching. If you have thoughts or questions you want to share with the Curiository community, join us tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in the live stream. There's more info in the description. This video was inspired by an episode of the No Dumb Questions podcast with Matt Whitman and Destin Sandlin. If you want to hear two smart guys discuss this issue and talk about bear attacks, I recommend. This video was made possible by our patrons on Patreon, including Harry and Erika, the Jeans family, the Lawson family, Andrew, James, and my parents. If you want to help support this channel and get access to fun perks like behind the scenes content or t-shirts, consider becoming a patron for as little as $1 a video. But as always, I'll see you next time in the Curiository.